Thank you, Dafina. So I'll go ahead and share my screen here. All right, so thanks everyone for joining us today. My name is Aaron Pepin, and I'm happy to be leading off what should hopefully be a valuable session for all of you, offering some experience from a variety of different industries on some resume and interview experiences that we can help offer you. So with me today, and I'll let them introduce themselves later in the presentation, I have Tom, Megan, Mark, John, and Calvin. And they'll be able to offer their different feedback for their respective engineering careers and current disciplines where they work, and experiences related to job seeking, job getting, and the processes in between those. Before we jump to that, though, we're going to start off, you'll be stuck with me going over some resume basics, do's and don'ts, as well as how to most effectively market your project experience, whether that's Engineers Without Borders specific or otherwise. And then I'm going to hand it off to Tom to talk through some interview preparation topics, and then we'll change over to going through each of our additional panelists here, and they'll be able to offer their different takes on the situation as well. And hopefully by the end of this, as Dafina mentioned, you'll have been able to develop a couple questions that you can ask, and we'll make sure that you're getting out of this what you came to get for. So again, please toss those right in the chat. I believe you said, Dafina, right? Okay, perfect. And then we'll be able to get to those at the end. So jumping into the resume do's and don'ts, I'm going to break this into three main sections. The first being looking at formatting, then looking at content, and then diving into the project experience sections. So starting with formatting, and I want to let you know that any example I do show is from a real resume, either something that we've seen submitted to us or something that we've reviewed with other candidates. The personal information has been redacted, so please forgive my fake zip code for having one too many digits in it, but that was necessary for their privacy. So the first thing I want to hit on formatting, and really the broad stroke, is think about how little time someone may have to really look at this single sheet of paper that's meant to really sum you up and be memorable and get what they need out of it. One of the biggest do's that, especially recently, we've kind of seen fall off a little bit is include an objective statement. Why do I have this piece of paper in my hand? What are you looking for? And how can I best market myself now to you to fit that opportunity? Make sure that you're noting volunteer experiences, extracurricular activities, things that may be an opportunity to more relate to the person you're interviewing with or who's reading your resume, but maybe that's not what's in what I've highlighted here as the first section of the document. One of the things we're seeing as many more opportunities switch over to digital submission, and typically the younger you are, maybe the more digitally adept you may be, is pushing towards more advanced formatting, different colors. And while that can be effective and can help segment some of the information, what you need to be careful of is what I'm trying to highlight here. These are two similar experience level resumes, different fields, but put side by side, taking the exact same distance off the top. If I'm thumbing through a stack and trying to remember something or trying to get to a certain objective or experience, which candidate here am I getting more information in the first couple of seconds that I'm able to skim down the top of this? The left side, I'm able to get not only their personal information, where they may be moving from, but I also know what they're going for and what some of their experience may be related to what their objective is. Whereas on the right side, it looks nice, but I'm not necessarily getting that information. Moving into more of the content focus section and how you're able to, kind of drive the conversation. I like to think of the resume as your opportunity to get the interviewer, or if you're at a career fair, it's a particularly short period of time, but getting them to ask you the questions that you want to answer. You're able to highlight and really try to put emphasis on the projects, the experiences that you want to speak about. One of my favorite test to go through with people is have them take, for example, their project section, as you can see on the slide here, and run down their existing resume and just read off the first word of every description. And if that first word, reading that sentence that you make, reading that first word doesn't describe you how you want to be, interpreted, then you've kind of got to work with that, because especially in a career fair or quick review type of session, that may be all the time that they have to figure out what they're going to ask you about. And so if they're not reading down those first ones and finding anything, they're going to pull a stock one out of their back pocket, and you've kind of lost your opportunity to really market your specific benefit. Through those, you can also show instead of tell your skills. So on the right, you see something that we pulled from a resume where they say, I'm good at cooperation, I can communicate, I'm a public speaker. Great, show me. Where did you have an example of good cooperation, good communication, public speaking? And through those experiences, you can tell the story better. And I'm now able to attribute that experience and the value that I put on that experience instead of just inferring. So now looking into specifically the project marketing. So this is tailored specifically to Engineers Without Borders, but does apply broadly across the spectrum. And really making sure that you don't short sell what is really incredibly valuable and industry applicable experience. This slide split up into two different sides. On the left side, an example where the nomenclature is more tailored to something that myself or anyone else on this call may go through on a daily basis in our regular engineering careers, looking at a problem statement, understanding who your customer is, identifying what you need to meet their needs. All right, I have a supplier that needs this piece of information in order to produce my part. You need to raise or allocate money. Who's going to pay me to look at this? And then research and design an engineering solution, pass your proposed solution through a series of reviews, execute it, make your change, and then evaluate whether or not it was effective and work it through sustainment. Again, using Engineers Without Borders as an example here, first step, same thing. You got to understand the community that you're working with and identify how to meet their fundamental needs that they've self-identified. You have to fundraise internally through cost share or externally through your own efforts. Research and design an engineering solution, particularly marketable if you're doing this outside of your typical field. Pass through a series of E2BB reviews, and then execute that solution and evaluate, monitor, and sustain those items. So in being able to communicate this, and this goes back, I'm going to go back up a slide for a minute. This goes back to the tell me your story piece. This is where if you put on your skills list, I can work the project process. Cool. It doesn't give me a whole lot to go with. If you put that I was able to work with a community in Guatemala to identify a critical need, fundraise in order to research and design an engineering solution in this technical field, get it through reviews, and as a team, implement a real solution, that's got a lot more meaning to it. And again, this design, make, test, learn, repeat system is extremely applicable when you come back over into industry. So again, in kind of pairing these two ideas, understanding that the work that you put in, whether it's an E2BB project, a school project, a design capstone, something of the like, and then taking that information, understanding the value and then marketing it properly, making sure you use your action verbs, make it eye-catching, make them ask you about it. You've got a lot of opportunity if you're able to drive the conversation through your experiences. And so, speaking of conversation, with that, I'm going to hand it over to Tom Rebecki, who's going to take us through a couple items on interviews. Tom, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Aaron. I'm going to talk through two slides that discuss interview preparation. So how to prepare for the discussion you're going to have with a hiring manager or recruiter once you've gotten through the resume review stage. So I personally think of interviews as sort of like a puzzle or a game, right? If you're good at it, you're able to make everything fit perfectly and to express all of your value and your value to the employer in tactful ways that explain why you will provide value to that company. And you do that through storytelling. So there are a couple fundamentals that I'll step through on this slide. The first one is to just prepare. So even in the digital era today, when you're on Zoom, make sure you dress correctly for an interview. I know on the East Coast where things are maybe a little bit more, I think there's a cultural difference between the East Coast and West Coast. I have a couple of colleagues who work on the West Coast, and they told me that they would be looked at as crazy if they showed up to a job interview in a suit. But here, on the East Coast, it was very standard for employers to set that as the standard. So I would say dress appropriately and correctly, whatever level that is, but it's always better, in my opinion, to overdress than underdress. The other thing is really rehearse and, walk through the most important stories you want to share with your interviewer. And that goes back to the puzzle pieces, right? You should know, what stories you have in your Rolodex and what skills they show that you possess. And if you can piece them all together in answering the interviewer's questions, you've done a good job. And then lastly, especially in the virtual age, have your resume ready. Be ready to share it on the screen if you're interviewing virtually, in case that the interview is more of a direct, step-by-step through your resume. Obviously, you want to do sufficient research on the company and their values before you're interviewing with them. One thing that I really find interesting and something that I did in college a few years ago is, if possible, research the person you're interviewing with. We have a great tool today called LinkedIn. If you know the interviewer's name, look them up on LinkedIn. It's not cheating. It's actually great to go into an interview feeling more comfortable, knowing who your audience is going to be, and you can really use that to your advantage. You can tailor your stories to something that might resonate with that person. And then lastly, I would say, have your questions prepared. It's always good to end an interview with at least one question. It shows that you're interested, shows that you've thought about something. And I would, encourage you to think of questions that are maybe not the most common questions. Think of something in my head. For me, I really value an employer that is focused on doing good in the world, right, through volunteerism and corporate social responsibility. So you could ask about a question about that, just as an example. And then this goes without saying, but know your motivation. Know why you want the job. Know why you're the right person for the job. And a question that I've come across a lot that really throws a lot of people for a loop is, what are your strengths and weaknesses? It's important for you to be able to accurately identify your strengths, but at the same time, interviewers might ask you what your weaknesses are. And you need to be ready for those questions, because if you're not, you may say something that really devalues you as a candidate. So think of an area that you do need to improve on, and you can be honest with the interviewer. And I usually tend to try to spin it into a positive. I'm personally someone who's motivated to improve myself. So if you're self-aware enough to know what your weaknesses are and explain how you're working on those, it will demonstrate a lot of maturity to the interviewer. Next slide, please. So I think this really pulls everything together, and it was sort of what Aaron was alluding to. Most interviews, at least for entry-level job positions, are what are classified as behavioral interviews, and they're very general situational questions. It's easy to get lost in storytelling. It's easy to waste an interviewer's time, and it's easy to come away from an interview without really providing the interviewer with a good understanding of who you are. And you can combat that with a technique called the STAR method. And this really helps me when I was a college student in interviewing. There are 4 letters in STAR: STAR, situation, task, action, and results. So when you're answering your questions, you should have a list of stories and examples and situations in mind. And what you're going to do is you're going to first start by describing the situation. So after that, you can explain what your task was that you boiled down from the situation. Then you should describe what tangible actions you took and R for result, explain how you changed the circumstance and what resulted. So, I haven't really thought of an example, but, maybe our company needs to fundraise $10,000 or our EWB chapter needs to fundraise $10,000 for an implementation trip. That's the situation. My task is I saw that goal and I decided that, we needed to have a fundraiser at a golf course. And the action I took was coordinating everyone in the chapter to plan this golf tournament and execute the entire fundraising event for a whole day. And the result was we raised $8,000 towards our goal, right? So it's very tangible, and it kind of focuses the story and makes sure you're not rambling, and it shows value that you provided to the team. So I would encourage you to practice the STAR method, practice common questions that you can find online, and make sure you use stories from your extracurriculars, such as Engineers Without Borders, that will distinguish you from others. The last thing I'll mention is etiquette, and this really goes without saying, but make sure you're on time. It's also really a best practice to follow up with your interviewer after, so send a quick email thanking them for their time and letting them know that you're interested in the position. And I think I touched on this in the previous slide, but it's actually really interesting to ask a question at the end of an interview about an extracurricular which is important to you. So employee resource groups, volunteerism, activities, what it's like to live in the area where the potential employer is. All these things really go a long way in kind of making you more personable, and it sets a good rapport, it builds good rapport with your teammates before you're even selected for the position. So I hope that was helpful, and I will turn it over now back to Aaron again to kind of walk us through the next segment.
Awesome, thank you, Tom. And so I won't take too much time with my own here. I'll let us get on to the other panelists that we have. Going in order, we'll have after me, Mark, then John, then Megan, and then back to Tom. And what our goal here is to show a little bit of what our career experience is, for those of them that may have a little bit more than I do, and then what some of the skills and experiences that are highlighted in our particular fields that we look for in resumes, new hires, and the like. So mechanical design engineer at Pratt Whitney, which is a company works on commercial and military jet engines. So a lot of the skills I look for are computer program based, looking at CAD, FEA programs, additionally looking for any potential coding experience as simple as Microsoft VBA or Python, and then also geometric dimensioning and tolerancing in the scheme of blueprints and design communication, what you may get from projects with construction drawings. Experiences and behaviors, looking at specifically project management experience is big. Time management, places where you've had to weigh priorities and were able to do that successfully towards an outcome, as well as manufacturing and hands-on experience. It's easy in the digital age for an engineer to get lost in the dimensionless screen. Any opportunity to have hands-on experience with manufacturing processes or implementations is big. So with that, like I said, I would keep mine short. I'll hand it over to Mark to introduce himself a little bit and hit on some of those same topics for his field. Oh, and Mark, you're still on mute too.
I'm in the right app this time to unmute myself. Good going, Mark. Thanks, Aaron. Mark Johnson, Deputy Director, Upper Blackstone Clean Water. We're in second largest wastewater treatment plant in New England. We recently changed our name. It used to be Upper Blackstone Water Pollution Abatement District. So we went through a brand change, I guess, as they're calling it now. They wanted to get rid of the word pollution. And so I wanted to get rid of the word abatement because nobody knew what that meant. So this is 2020. 2021 is when I got out of school first time. So it's going on 40 years that I've been out there in the field, and I've been working in civil engineering, water and sanitation, and structures ever since. I've worked in manufacturing, designing hydraulic structures, consulting on water projects down in Venezuela, Peace Corps in Honduras, worked for CARE in Dominican Republic and Haiti, and I was in Haiti after the earthquake 10 years ago. I have been at Upper Blackstone the last 10 years. I was actually a project manager there doing some of the upgrades. So I've got quite a varied background, which is what you find when you get kind of into the civil engineering side of the disciplines. So what have I sent here? I was actually working on some of the things that were sent out. So broad understanding of fields beyond. Yeah, well, I guess I should, like most things, I don't prepare for them that well. The last thing, I guess, is the most important, actually the last word on this page. When I talk to somebody about what they're looking for, the resume is very important. And I'm not going to overlap with the things that Tom and Aaron have said. They're all very good and very important. I try to look over the cover letter and the resume and try to get a feel for how I can make a connection with the person that I'm interviewing, and I suggest that you do the same. And as Tom said, that LinkedIn is a fabulous way to do that. So you try to start something off that you have something in common, because it's more often than not the resumes and the interviews, they're all about the task. And if you can build a little bit of a relationship with people, the task gets done all by itself. The resume is all about aptitude. You've paid for that. You've paid for all this schooling and learning to get a leg up and to get a job. But when it comes to attitude, you can't teach attitude. It's something that comes from within. And I think baseball recruiters, they say that you can't teach speed. You can teach just about anybody how to catch, throw, and bat, but they can't teach them how to run fast. And that's one of the first things that they look for. And that's really kind of an attitude sort of thing. And that comes across in, just the way you present yourself, being on time, how you dress, and how you talk. If I were to talk to you like this, and I kind of trailed up at the end of every sentence, you would begin to think that I didn't really think that I knew what I was talking about. So, try not to trail up at the end of the sentence unless you're asking a question, I guess. And questions are good. That was one of the questions that someone asked. Very important to ask questions. Communication, try to avoid the fillers, like, things like that. Those have a tendency to provide more of a distraction than just a filler. So just have a little bit of confidence when it comes to that. And it takes a little practice. It's almost part of our language now. And then curiosity is another thing, and that's kind of a broad sort of thing. And that comes from the fact that you're in Engineers Without Borders means that you have a heightened level of curiosity outside of what you're actually learning. And that's very important. Once you get to a job, you want to be the person that says, well, what can I do to help, sort of thing. And one of the things that I ask people that I interview too is, give me an example of a problem that you identified in your life. It can be any time in life. It can be, if it's part of your schooling, that's good too. And how you developed a solution to that problem, and then how you worked it through. And that's, people come up with these things right away. One of the best interviews I had was with a custodian where we work now. And I posed that question to him. He thought about it for no more than like 1 or 2 seconds, and he went on for about 15 minutes. And it was a very good interview. There's other things, don't be afraid to list, in your resume if you want, some of the things like your hobbies, some of the books that you feel are very important and have touched you, or some of the things that you've also done, summer jobs and things like that, because you never know where the connection is going to come from. So, I've interviewed people with some very interesting backgrounds, and that, as you listen to these people, you begin to realize that they have a lot more going for them than just it says on the resume. And then you start to pry a little bit more based on what their activities are outside of that, and you can make a connection between the learning and what you need from them and what they've done outside of school. But a lot of it comes down to how you fit in. And I try to, I don't want everybody to be the same. I try to find a good mix of people, and it's best that not everybody get along, because if everybody got along and was just like me, then that wouldn't be good. So the work that I do is a little bit different. Most jobs that you're going to be looking for, they're during the day, during the week, and that's when everybody's there. What I'm in right now, it never ever closes. It's open all the time. By law, we have to have a certain number of people there 24 hours a day and on holidays. So it's a different sort of person that we look for sometimes. They work off hours. Some people that like weekends or holidays, and other people that don't. And trying to put people in those positions is sometimes difficult. The other thing too is, one of the things you might want to ask is, what sort of short-term goals would you have for me if I was interviewing for the job? I think it's important. If it's just one goal, ask what it would be and what would be the timeline. If it would be a month or 2 months or 3 months into it, develop a little Gantt chart or something like that for this particular goal, and then go over that at the end. It's important that they know that you're interested in determining what the goal would be if I were to work for you. I think goals should be, I do the ABCs of goals, that they should be achievable, believable, and conceivable. And that, the other thing too in life is that there's, everything that we do involves, in civil engineering, they would teach you in construction management that everything is based on the cost and the schedule and the quality of the product. And so there was kind of this triangle. And your goal was kind of in the middle of that triangle. And so you wanted to find a healthy balance between things that it was the right cost, it was the best quality, and it was done at the right amount of time. If you change that target to any one of those three corners or those points, the other two suffer. So for example, if you try to accelerate the schedule, it's going to cost more and the quality might go down. If you want a higher quality, then the cost is going to go up and the schedule is going to suffer. It's kind of like that. But and our minds are doing this all the time. If you go to the student union because it's time to get a donut and a coffee or a tea or something like that, you're thinking, for not so much money and really quick, I can go to this one place and I'll be back, in studies real quick. But if I had the time and the money, I'll go to the other place that's on the other side of campus, and that would be much better. I would enjoy that. So your mind is always doing this, but there's a fourth dimension to this that is rarely taken into account, and that's what Aaron was talking about, and that's customer satisfaction. So it's not really a triangle. It's, I don't know what the shape is. Is it a tetrahedron or something? You chemical people are going to have to help me with that one. But customer satisfaction is really the fourth dimension that's not really taken into account. And so if you can weave that into your interviews somehow with whatever work you've done or whatever projects you've done, that really shows the human side of the whole project completion matrix. And Aaron, I have no idea how much time I'm supposed to have. As usually, me. I usually can go on forever here, but
I think that was perfect. Thank you so much, Mark. With that, we're going to toss it over to John.
Hey guys, Aaron and Tom, what awesome advice you provided, and Mark, so cool to hear more about your background and excellent insights as well. So hi guys, really excited to be here with you. I have a background in environmental geology and started out my career working at a mid-sized engineering firm based out of San Diego. And I've since moved on. So my current job, I actually focus on pollution from the apparel industry, focused on production that mostly happens in Asia. So looking at pollutants from those factories and other problems at those facilities, and then trying to work with companies to make improvements. And then my experience with EWB, I didn't have EWB at the college that I went to, but as soon as I graduated and when I started working, some of my colleagues at Kleinfelder were involved with EWB in Hartford there, where Aaron and Tom are. And so I got roped in very quickly and ended up jumping right into a water supply project in India. And I felt like, while I was still sort of doing sort of pretty rudimentary work on my day job, EWB was actually providing me a really amazing opportunity, probably like you guys are having while you're still students, but to do higher level project management work and to have an international experience and to just get all kinds of exposure and experience that I actually wasn't even having yet in my day job. So I've now been involved with EWB for right about a decade. So I've been chapter president and the DC state rep and the vice president and now the president for the Southeast Regional Steering Committee. I just joined the governance committee as well, so helping to select the board of directors for EWB. It's been really cool to get insights from these different positions into how the organization works. But my EWB experience has been really influential, I think, in also driving, my day job forward and in helping me get the job that I have now, which I consider to be sort of like my dream job. I feel very, very fortunate to have it. And I think that as much of the experiences I had, in my day job, I think that my experience with EWB was just as influential in the mind of the folks who hired me for the job that I have now. I really tried to, market my EWB experience in a very significant way. It's a big part of my resume. So I had just a few ideas that I wanted to share. I think Mark, Aaron, and Tom have covered a lot of this already. The basics for starting out where I was working, it's a bachelor's or a master's in some kind of, science, geology, environmental science, civil engineering. Where I started out, it didn't really matter whether you had a bachelor's or a master's. You sort of still had to go through the same paces. And then the master's sort of became more of a significant differentiator a little bit later on. But you still sort of had to start out doing the same sort of, gaining the same sort of field experience and sort of, learning the ropes of the industry, regardless as to which degree you had. Something that I really look for a candidate that I'm interviewing is project management experience and leadership experience. I think EWB is a fantastic way for someone who has been in school and might not otherwise have had a lot of opportunity to demonstrate those capabilities or to have those experiences. EWB is just a fantastic way to show that. And I think it's a big differentiator for folks that have been involved with EWB to really make that very clear, very prominent in your resume and in interviews as well. I very much look for communication skills and attention to detail. So I think Aaron touched on this as well, but have some friends and folks check out your resume to make sure that you don't have any typos and that the layout looks really good. If there are a bunch of typos in your cover letter and the layout of your resume is kind of wonky, that's going to tell me that the work that you're going to do is going to have those same kind of problems. So it's really worth focusing on your resume, focusing on your cover letter, getting some other folks to check it out, really customizing it for the job that you're applying for. So it tells me that you're the type of person who does their homework and puts their best foot forward. And that says a lot. And other folks have touched on this too, but just your professionalism. I think you really want to, when I'm interviewing someone, I really want to see that it's a person who can take initiative, who's not going to ask a million questions and really struggle to get started on something, but also not someone who's so headstrong that they're not going to work well with teams. And Mark definitely touched on this as well, mentioning curiosity. I really want to see that you have a high level of interest and, a real commitment to the type of work that's relevant to the job. And I just wanted to circle back, it's not on the slide, but just a note on how you dress. I was told after I got my first job after graduating from college that a key differentiator between me and some other folks who had been interviewed was that I dressed the best. I wore a suit, even though it wasn't the most formal workplace. I was definitely the best, the most formally dressed person in the room. But after the fact, that really helped say to them that I was taking this very seriously. And, I guess if you're applying for a startup, that might come off as not being appropriate and you just being totally out of touch. But I think otherwise, definitely err on the side of dressing up more than you need to. Better to err on that side of it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, John. With that, we'll hand it over to Megan.
Hi, I'm Megan. I work at Collins Aerospace. I'm a mechanical engineer. I kind of have like a little bit of a different background than some of the other people here. I mainly work on optic systems like camera and telescopes, a little bit of a small touch of space systems. So a lot of my work doesn't really pertain to anything that we do with EWB, but it's also good because it keeps me on my toes and constantly learning new things. Previously, I was in the Coast Guard. I was a bosun mate, so I did boat maintenance, motor repairs, oil changes, like hydraulic systems. I do a lot of stuff that like pertain to my degree and like things that I do now on a normal basis. And after I got out of the Coast Guard, I was a police officer for a while, which actually helped me out with my public speaking because I prosecuted a lot of my arrests, so I had to get very comfortable speaking in front of people and like on the fly. So definitely practicing speaking in front of people will help you be able to find your words faster when you're talking about things. And people can really tell if you've practiced your public speaking or not. And it's really important to when you're in an interview to like sound like you know what you're talking about. So I've been with EWB for a little bit over a year now. I was just introduced to it from one of my coworkers, and I got roped in with Aaron and Tom, and I'm the technical lead for the borehole team, which I've kind of started from the ground up, where I didn't really know much about the project that we were doing. So I've kind of had to do a lot of research and a background investigation and like a lot of stuff because I've never really been exposed to it. So it's actually helped me out with my job now because it gives me more exposure to other things. Some important things that I would look for from a candidate is your project or volunteer experience, and ability to work with your hands. I find that like a lot of people in college, some of them don't have so much project experience, and it's really important to have something that you're really passionate about on an interview. And you sound like excited and you're like talking about maybe your capstone projects or something that was like largely like you were involved in and you know about it and you're passionate about it. Makes it sound like you will take an interest and have a good passion for the work that you're going to be doing within the company. Something that I would look for a new hire recruit is participation in experiences or projects like sports, clubs, AIAA, ASME, because that exposes you to different like hands-on projects and such. Sports, I played 2 sports while I did my engineering degree, and it really lets you hone in on your time management skills. Because you have to be super organized in order to get all of your classwork done, but also participate in the sports. And that's a very key factor because I'm not really managed very much by my boss. I have a self-initiated projects, and so I have to continue showing progress on my projects and getting things done without having someone behind me, watching me, micromanaging me. So my business has given me this opportunity to show my time management, my initiative to get things done on my own. And another important thing is being able to ask for help. When you first get into a job, you're not going to know everything. And it's understood. Like you should look to all your peers as your mentors. I look to a lot of my peers as my mentors, even if I feel like I can ask them anything at any time. But if you ask someone the same question 3 times, they're probably not going to tell you the answer. So don't be afraid to ask for help because you can learn a lot more about something just from a general question that they could expand on the topic and you can get into a whole new realm of information just from asking for a simple question.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Megan. We'll toss it over to Tom quickly, and then we'll close out the hour with some questions and answers.
Sure. So I'll go next, and I think we want to add in Calvin as well, who was able to join us. So I'll keep it short and sweet because I've already done enough talking. So again, my name is Tom Rebecki. I'm a materials engineer, which is maybe not the most common engineering field you might come across every day. Essentially, a materials engineer works at the nanoscale to create and engineer materials that have macroscopic properties. I've been involved with EWB as a volunteer for about 9 years now. It's an organization I'm extremely passionate about. I spend a lot of my time volunteering with the organization, and I've been really fortunate to hold a lot of leadership roles within EWB at the chapter level and regional level, and I'm currently serving a 3-year term on EWB USA's board of directors representing professional chapters. So I guess I'd add a different flavor to the two questions at the bottom of the slide relative to my peers that have already spoken. I think for me, as more of a scientist as opposed to an engineer, lab-based experience and research experience is extremely important for hiring into the field I'm in. I was lucky enough to go to a research university, and I was able to do about 3 years of research as an undergrad, and that really helped me demonstrate interest in the field as well as competency. So that's something I look for when I'm interviewing prospective hires. And then if you're going into a specialized discipline like mine, coursework can really make the difference. So I personally work a lot with nickel-based superalloys. I took a lot of classes in metallurgy that focused my degree in an area that's most applicable to the aerospace industry. So that was really a differentiator for me. I think I'd echo what John said about what he looks for in terms of experiences and behaviors. I think I would just also add, or just rephrase, I think being a self-starter, being motivated and showing that you're a self-starter is really a differentiator for me. As Megan said, your boss isn't always going to be able to be looking over your shoulder at every second. You probably don't want them to be either. So if you can demonstrate that you're able to manage your own time and really drive projects toward completion with minimal intervention from leadership, that's really, you're a strong candidate if you can do that. So I think that's it.
Awesome. Thanks, Tom. And you all right? Calvin, I'm glad you're able to join us. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to throw the first. I know we had a couple questions that were pre-submitted. And so I'm going to toss one surprise one at you if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself a little bit, and then maybe tackling people were asking a question to your interviewer and what might be a question or a type of question that you would suggest asking. So if you wouldn't mind kind of introducing yourself a little bit and then maybe seeing what you think on that one. Oh, Calvin, I think you might be on some kind of double mute because I don't think we're able to hear you. No, I can't hear you yet. I know personally, I've found more ways than I knew I had to mute myself over the last couple months. All right, so while Calvin's digging around for his super secret mute, any of the other panelists, Mark, Megan, John, or Tom, have any feedback on that question? And I'm going to stop sharing my screen so the videos will be up instead.
I could chime right in. I loved what Tom said about asking about their support for EWB or similar initiatives. Another idea that comes to mind for me is asking about sharing your career objectives and asking how that fits in, how the company would be able to support you. in hitting those milestones and meeting those objectives, and what opportunities they would provide for you to have the experiences that you're looking for in the near future and longer term.
Awesome, for sure. I'm still not getting anything, Calvin, sorry. Mark or Megan, you have anything to add on that one?
I probably would just have to ask what kind of like development programs they have to help me hone in on my professional skills, what kind of like extra benefits for like schooling for masters, or like what kind of mentorship programs. How can your company help you become a better engineer? That's like what I would use. I would go in that direction.
Yeah, I second that. I would, I had written down mentoring programs, continuing education, or volunteer opportunities. The other thing too, in at least civil engineering, and I don't know about the other disciplines, it's important to go into the interviews, at least letting them know if you haven't taken your fundamentals of engineering exam, which is highly unlikely, but that you have applied for it and you'll be doing it soon after graduation. That shows, that's on the initiative side and the curiosity. That's the first step towards. And I think there's a fundamentals exam to everything now. So, that you go into the interviews letting them know that you're signing up for it or when you think you're going to be sitting for it. And, and just word of wisdom, the sooner you take that, if you are thinking of taking it, the sooner you take that when you're done with school, the easier it is to pass. The professional engineering exams are the opposite. They're easy. The more experience you have, those are easier to pass. The fundamentals exam is really just like the GED for engineering school. It's just testing to see if you went to class and stayed awake. They're really that easy to pass. If you've done well in school, you'll pass it without any trouble. But that's always good to see that someone has that initiative, that they have a plan, that if you're going to be an engineer in training is what you want, I guess.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. Calvin, I think I might have seen your little box light up around you there. Can we hear you now?
Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Yep. Awesome.
All right, sweet. Yeah, my computer's just being weird, so I just called in. What I was saying earlier was I'm a recent graduate, too, from San Diego State. I graduated in environmental engineering last year, 2019, and I had a job at a company called Harrison Associates. We're doing some pipeline design, but after the past couple of months, I recently quit to look for something that was more water treatment related. But anyways, just like some few tips. Everybody had some pretty good advice so far, but I guess something I could add to was things that I found important for finding a job and kind of getting a job were communication skills and networking for sure. Something that helped me out was just kind of getting out there to all the job like meetings and job setups that the school put on, and just putting myself in situations that I wasn't necessarily comfortable joining at first, and just kind of talking to as many professionals as I could and just getting comfortable talking to those people. Because when I first came to San Diego, I was scared to talk to professional engineers, but after I started talking to them and just kind of casually, sometimes it'd be casual, sometimes it'd be professional, but over time I got a lot more comfortable talking to professional engineers. I think that helped me in an interview situation too.
Awesome. Thanks, Calvin. And I'm glad that we're able to get you on the line too. So in a minute, I'm going to go around the Zoom here with our panelists, asking for one sentence answer to a final question, which is, what are some key things that you'd look for in an elevator pitch or in the first kind of impression, a self-introduction? That was another one we had submitted. And so before I give them a second to think, I just want to thank Natalie and Dafina and the team that put this on for having us. I really hope that this was helpful for everybody. And if you're interested in any of the material we went over, or reaching out for further questions, please feel free to reach out to them to get in contact with any one of us. So with that, Tom, I'm going to put you on the spot first for what do you think are some key things you look for in an elevator pitch or a first introduction, self-introduction?
I will go with one phrase, and that is body language. I think basically how you carry yourself and how comfortable you appear is really important. It's indicative of how, you interact with others.
Awesome. Thank you, Tom. John?
Yeah, mine's very much related. I was going to say just having a very clear understanding of where you are and where you want to go. So, you have this skill set and you're looking to head into this industry and to move in this direction, and just your confidence in being able to state that will go a really long ways.
Awesome. Thank you. Megan?
I would have to say do a little bit of research on the company that you want to apply for, because you should know what they do, so that way you can kind of tie your experiences into what they do as a company.
Awesome. Thank you, Megan. Mark?
Yeah, there's little to add to all those. Those are all great. I would say, eye contact and please don't interrupt.
All right. Perfect.
It happens more often than, interviewing engineers, most of the time they're just staring at their shoes is one thing, and then when they get nervous and have a tendency to interrupt. So all the other ones are great. And I've never heard that before. What did you call it? Elevator pitch?
Yep. If you were stuck in an elevator with someone and you only had the ride to market yourself, how long you got? I don't know how tall the skyscrapers you get to get invited to are, Mark, but I only get a couple floors. All right. Well, thank you. And to wrap us up on that question, Calvin, anything to add in on that?
I was just gonna say confidence in oneself while talking, and also just passion. If you could tell if they have passion speaking to you, definitely plus.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, Mark, Megan, John, Tom, and Calvin. And Defina or Natalie, I guess I'll hand it back over to you.
Yeah, so I guess I can jump in. I didn't introduce myself at the beginning, but I'm the co-president of EWB. First of all, thank you so much for running this workshop, for all of the valuable insight that all of the panelists have given, especially Aaron for leading this conversation. I thought it was really valuable, and I hope that all of our attendees also found it valuable. Just for logistics, we are planning to post this recording, and I believe the slides will be made available as well, but we'll definitely keep in touch with everyone about that. And I know that there were a lot of questions that were submitted during the panel that we didn't get to. So I really encourage all the attendees to keep those questions, maybe follow up with some of these professionals on LinkedIn, or, bring those questions to the future recruiting events that TESC has. But just wanted to say thank you again to panelists, to Natalie and Defina for really planning all of this, and for the team at TESC for, letting us collaborate as well.
And if you guys don't mind, I'm just going to jump in. I'm the Poncha director. I wanted to thank EWB for hosting this event, and I wanted to thank the professionals for coming down and hosting this and giving such great insight. We have some amazing people who've come down, and I really appreciate it. I also wanted to say that we do have another workshop coming up just in about a couple of minutes. RPL's workshop's coming up, and I would definitely recommend going to it. They're telling you how to share your technical experience, project experience with recruiters. So definitely a great idea. Definitely come and join. Thank you, Mark. And yes, so yeah, that's about as much as I wanted to say. And also I did want to say we will be posting the recording once EWB shares it with us on our Facebook and along with on our Discord. So yeah.
All right. Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks, Aaron. Thanks all. Bye, guys.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, have a good
Thank
night.
you, everyone.